to the entertaining Talkin' Sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. As a big rumor has dropped from Pro Football Talk. We'll get into it regarding Jack Conklin and the New York Jets, which is, of course, bad news for the New York Giants if it is true. I've been on record of saying not just at the tackle position, but any player in this year's free agency class. If the Giants were going to spend big money, I wanted it to be on Jack Conklin because, for one, the Giants are incredible. They're old on the offensive line. They need to get younger players, and Jack Conklin is incredibly talented. It's very rare that you see a player hit free agency that is as young as Conklin and as talented as Conklin. Now, the question with Conklin, of course, he's had some major injuries, which is why I think he's hitting free agency in the first place. And the Titans, of course, have two players on their roster that they want to retain probably with Tannehill and Derrick Henry. I personally, if I was a Titans fan, would probably keep Conklin. The guy's a stud when he's healthy, and he played great over the second half of the season and is widely credited with why the Titans got going there in the second half. Of course, it took him a little time to get back from injury. I want Conklin at all costs at this point because I think it gives us so much more flexibility in the draft, and it really assures one of our biggest needs, which is the right tackle position. Remmers is gone, okay? Mike Remmers is gone, not to mention he is a fantastic run blocker. I would love to see him here, but the question now, if this is true, and we'll get into the exact quote in a second, the tweet, if this is true, what do the New York Giants decide to do? Whether it means address it in free agency or the draft. We do not want to overpay for an offensive tackle. With Conklin, I didn't feel like we were overpaying because of his age and his talent level. The guy's only going to be 25 or 26 years old next year. If he remains healthy, he is arguably the best run-blocking right tackle in the sport. You're trying to build your offense around the run game. So he made a lot of sense for the New York Giants. He still makes a lot of sense for the New York Giants. Nothing is set in stone, but according to at least one NFL source who talked to an NFL team, he is expected to sign on with the New York Jets, and it only makes sense. I've said this numerous times with Jack Conklin. I said, yeah, I would love to have Jack Conklin. He's the one guy that I'd be willing to break the bank on, but he's going to be the one guy a lot of teams are willing to break the bank on because it is very rare an offensive lineman of his skill set at his age hits the open market. The Giants have to fit their sixth most cap space, but anybody that has cap space is going to jump at this guy, and it may be a bidding war. And if Conklin is smart, he wouldn't just sign on with the Jets. He'd try to get as much as he possibly can, and I'm sure he will. He's going to get paid, and he'll get paid handsomely. There's a number of teams that need help there. Pretty much any team, there's pretty much every team in the league could use a player like Jack Conklin. And he knows it. The New York Giants know it, and that's why it's going to be hard for the Giants to get him, which is why I've expressed this entire time that we may want to take an offensive tackle early in the draft because there's no guarantees if you wait after the first round. Not that there's a guarantee if you pick one early either. You look at the other offensive tackles in free agency, the two guys that jump off the page are Costanzo and Bulaga. Costanzo's very good. He's still graded very high with PFF last year. I think he was 86, but he's old. I think he's 32, and the Colts have the best offensive line in the sport. I don't see them wanting to break that up, and I don't think he'll be available. And if he is, he's not a long-term solution. I would not sign him to more than a 2 or 3 year deal, and the same could be said for Bulaga. I think he's 31. So neither one of these guys are a long-term solution. I viewed Conklin as the perfect fit being that long-term solution. This is something the Jets should have done last offseason, was address the offensive line with their free agency money. And we know the Jets are not shy throwing money around when it comes to free agency. The last 2 years, they've spent $400 million. But this one would make a lot of sense. You need some help blocking for Le'Veon Bell and protecting your quarterback with Sam Darnold. But let's jump into the exact tweet, which, caused this ruckus. And, everybody's going crazy on Twitter. And Florio's a pretty reliable source. He was the guy that broke this of NBC. And this is Pro Football Talk. At least one team has been told that the Titans offensive tackle Jack Conklin plans to sign with the New York Jets in free agency. So they're not even saying he's thinking about it. He plans to sign with the New York Jets, which puts the New York Giants in a bit of a dilemma because I don't think you're going to be able to get a supreme tackle in free agency at this point. I think he was the lone guy that was a supreme tackle. Yeah, you may be able to get a center. They certainly could do that, but then you still have the problem at the tackle spot. And do you really trust Nate Solder going forward after this year at the left tackle spot? I think we'll probably cut him. And yeah, you could wait another year to try to add your tackle, but you want to fix that as soon as possible, being that you have Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones. The question being, do the New York Giants feel like a guy like Austin Jackson, or do they feel one of these top 4 offensive linemen could fall back into the early second round or potentially the back end of the first where they could trade back up and take one of them like they did with DeAndre Baker last year? That's the question the New York Giants have to ask themselves, and if they feel like they could get value at that position, maybe they do go with Okudah or Isaiah Simmons. But if they don't feel that way, I strongly believe the Giants will go tackle in the first round of this year's draft, and they may trade down, being that they feel like they could still get a premium one in the mid-first round. But if they feel like the projected second-round tackles are not guys that they really trust, at this point in time, I feel like the tackle position is vitally important. Not to say the linebacker position isn't. We're going to have to wait and see how it all plays out and what the New York Giants decide to do. They definitely need to shore up that offensive line, and maybe they'll attack center in free agency if they see fit, or maybe they'll get some depth pieces. But to me, Conklin was the one standout, the one, top-tier talent in this year's class, and maybe he won't go to the Jets. This is just one source. Nothing is set in stone. But if he does end up with the New York Jets, I think the Giants will have to address that position as soon as possible in this year's draft. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.